So there's been a pattern I've been noticing a lot in the games I've been playing as of late, especially since a lot of games I've been enjoying have been action focused. I have noticed that my playstyle would heavily lean towards anything that would have some sort of counter. Nothing really beats the amount of dopamine you get whenever you turn an otherwise dangerous attack into an advantage. The most recent example would be all the new counters and all the offset mechanics that were introduced in Monster Hunter Wilds. I know the current talk these days when a new Monster Hunter game comes out is how much easier each game becomes, but that's just how it is whenever a high rank only game comes out. And if the high rank version of the final boss is anything to go by, well, I can only imagine how much more difficult the G rank expansion is going to be. Makes me wonder and shudder a bit if we're going to get another Iceborne Fatalis or a Latreon fight. With how the Monster Hunter series has progressed with the variety of games, the biggest addition I usually notice is the ability to counterattack. As of writing, I still have yet to try out every single weapon, but from what I have tried, using the offset attacks or counters has been a blast to use, even if a lot of the mechanics are technically not new to the Monster Hunter series. A lot of the evades and blocking counters that are in Wilds are merely just mirrors to Monster Hunter Gen/Gen U. From what I have played so far, the easiest comparison is the bow's adept dodge being adapted into Wilds, and the adept blocks being adapted to any weapon that has a shield. Outside of the longsword starting at 5th gen, I would say the poster children of counters in the Monster Hunter series are the lance and the charge blade. Charge Blade's guard point counters in 4 Ultimate is probably one of the most flashiest things in the Monster Hunter series at the time, and they still feel great to do, especially when it results in a KO. The Lance starting in 3rd gen has the counter at its most basic form. There's nothing really visually appealing about it, but yet with how simple Monster Hunter was at the time, the simple addition of returning a monster's attack really made you feel like the unmovable vanguard that is the Lance. With me being about 2 years into my Final Fantasy adventures, I am finally on the most recent title, Final Fantasy XVI, and with that game being an action JRPG, it was only natural that there would be at least one form of counters. Now, I am possibly far from finishing the game, but at my current progress through the game, I have access to 3 different counters. The main method of countering is simply just dodging at the very last second with R1, and then choosing to retaliate with a forward jumping slash or a powerful magical attack. Sometimes, if you're lucky enough with the countering animation, you can manage the elusive parry, which allows a flurry of attacks instead of the big one. I'm not that great at parrying the intended way, so this is how it usually happens for me. There is a piece of equipment that you get that even enhances to evade to provide a lengthy retaliation, with attacks similar in appearance to Clive's limit break attacks. The other type of counter that I know so far in 16 is the block ability that is obtained after felling Titan. The block itself is pretty useful in a pinch, but blocking at the very last second would then nullify the attack and would allow a big 3-hit combo that deals a good amount of damage. This block is also incorporated as a pseudo guard point at the start of Raging Fists, which is really darn fun to use. Final Fantasy XV, the entry before the most recent game, had a much more rudimentary form of a counter that was more like a quick time event. Kinda like the game as a whole, the countering mechanic was somewhat left to be desired, but it still made for some cool moments in a pinch, but not exactly my favorite example of a counter. My favorite entry in the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy, Lightning Returns, was very unique in the method of having access to the counters. Moves in Lightning Returns were special rewards that enemies would drop upon being felled, 2 of which were Counter Blow and Counter Spell. These moves would then retaliate with either a physical move to upkeep the stagger gauge, or a spell to advance the gauge. While sounding useful on paper, I don't think I ever used either of these spells in favor of just using the regular guard moves, since you could perform a perfect block with good timing. There are even some outfits that would incorporate a counterattack with perfect blocks, and it was a method of staggering some more powerful enemies, like the big behemoth looking ones. The God of War series during its classic PS2 era had a couple of ways to parry using a shield, but nothing really compares Kratos' ability to block and counter in his Norse mythology arc. It was partially because of these counters that I really leaned towards a full strength build in both the PS4 and Ragnarok entries. Like the many examples that I have shown, Kratos can parry an attack and deal a powerful counterattack with proper timing with his shield. Like the offset attacks in Monster Hunter Wilds, the parrying animation would be done in a pseudo bullet time, to give the player a chance to think what to retaliate with next, while enjoying the dopamine from creating and opening. While you can't parry everything in the game at least visually tells the player how to react to a certain attack, with the simple usage of red for evading or yellow circles for blocking before an enemy goes on the offensive. The advantage that is gained from parrying can even be extended using moves that gives Kratos an enhanced bullet time in order to deal an extra line of combos or a strong charge attack. Probably the most infuriating form of counters that many have most likely experienced are the ones found in the Smash Bros. Series. Probably the most infamous ones are the counters that the sword wielders would have. When pressing down special, they go into a special stance as they shine blue for a split second, and if hit during this split second, they will do a powerful counter attack. Don't think that only the sword wielders can counter, there are a variety of melee attackers that can counter as well. Like Little Mac, Lucario, Greninja, and Incineroar can perform a counter attack, although the latter three will do a delayed counter. There are some variations on a down special counter for some characters, but it's usually visual. Shulk's counter becomes a large forward slash that is performed in bullet time. Because of its slowing down effect, it's pretty possible for Shulk to get hit during his counter, nullifying the counter attack. Another person that can do a bullet time counter is the infamous Bayonetta, who leaves the attacker in a slowdown witchy time state as a counter attack. Another form of countering would be the various methods of returning fire to the opponent, be it with Mario, who can flip the direction of any projectile or person with his magic feather cape. Pit, Dark Pit, Fox, Falco, and Wolf have down specials that reflect projectiles and people. Villager and Isabelle probably have the most situational range counter in the form of pocketing and returning fire on demand. From fallen trees to powered up power beams, these two residents have the ability to make their opponents wary about their range attacks. Even if the specific character you're playing as cannot counter in Smash Ultimate, there's still the shield parry that rewards players that know what their opponent's next move is. Can't really say I'm all that good at parrying, any parries I've performed were purely incidental, but just the sound effect that you hear when parrying successfully is quite the powerful feeling. A parallel of countering / parrying would be the ability to tank an attack via super armor. While not exactly the same, using characters that have high amounts of super armor like Bowser still essentially has the same intention of employing an attack to overpower the opponent. Usually, heavier characters are bestowed with this characteristic, but there are some outliers like Yoshi and Kirby's down special that are able to super armor through a surprising amount of attacks, and Dark Pit's side special is something that I find myself using on occasion. I'm learning. While it feels like I focused on a lot of counters that are purely defensive in nature, there are evasive counters that are for staying on the offensive. Platinum Games has both a series and a single entry that should get an enhanced version on the Switch too, that gives the player an evasive counter. Astral Chain offers the player the dodge that could become a super dodge with proper timing. The super dodge, while useful, is a bit temperamental as it feels like dodging backwards is much more effective than any other direction. The Bayonetta series is famous for its witchy time antics, which is essentially an extended bullet time where the player is given free reign to do what they want with the enemy after a successful dodge. Witchy time is an extremely powerful ability for Bayonetta as it allows her to evade nearly everything, from big sword swings to explosive projectiles, and may as well have never happened if it's dodged with proper timing. Witchy time is so infamous in fact that Kirby copied its properties in his newest adventure in the Forgotten Land. While this list of counters and parries is extensive, I know for a fact that there are a lot more out there in games that I've yet to play. So I must ask, what are your guys' favorite counters?